Hello YouTube, my name is Tristan, this is Lspace Books. Welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you are returning. Today I want to do my January 2025 reading plans, as well as talk about some reading goals that I'm setting for myself this year. I've seen a lot of these videos already, and I had already come up with some ideas for myself for what goals I wanted to do, and sort of challenges for myself this particular year. And one trend that I'm seeing a lot of is that people are trying to read fewer books and try to read the books that they do read more closely, and just read in a more profound manner. Reading more deeply, if you will. Deeper. And that's kind of on my list of things that I want to do as well. I decided that I'm going to read pages, not books, this year. So I'm not going to read a set number of books, but I am going to read a set number of pages. I found that for my own motivation and my own interest, and just keeping myself interested in the whole process of reading, it does help me to have a metric to shoot for. So traditionally having a goal of, say, 75 books for the year has been a helpful goal to keep me on task, if you will. So this year, having a page number goal is going to be one that I think is going to be pretty helpful overall to help me stay motivated, and also just something to kind of have a numerical metric to measure my reading, and just a little bit to give myself those endorphins of checking off a certain number of things. So, like I said, it's going to be pages, not books. And initially I was going to set myself to read 5,000 pages this year. And then as I was thinking about the books that I want to read this year, I'm realizing that 5,000 pages is actually not that many. So I'm going to boost that a little bit because I want it to be a little challenging. And I'm going to boost that to 7,000 pages this year. And I think that is going to be a pretty challenging number to hit for me. And you'll see why I'm increasing it in just a second. So the reason why I wanted to do pages and not books is because I, along with other booktubers, it seems that when you have a reading goal of 75 books, you tend to read shorter books to get that number of books up. I found myself, for sure, gravitating towards shorter books and books that didn't take a long time to complete, so that I could just add another one to the tally and get more and more books completed by the end of the year. Now, by having more pages, I think this is going to be a good way to motivate myself into reading those longer books. And that is going to be part of what you'll see momentarily about when I talk about the books that I'm reading this January. I'm going to be continuing a reading goal, and it was a New Year's resolution last year as well, but a reading goal of mine this year is to make sure to read one book written in French every month. I love my French books, and in order to keep up with my skills in French, I want to make sure that I'm actually reading something in French every month. Something that I can keep myself engaged with and, keep the neurons firing on that side of the brain, because if you don't use it, you lose it, type of thing. And then the last thing that I want to do is compile meaningful lines and quotes by the end of reading a total of 12 books. So I'm sort of 50-50 on annotating books. I do like to underline things in some books, but not all of them really stand out to me as ones that are, maybe worth annotating. And so this time I'm going to try to select 12 books over the course of the year that have lines that I think are, just books that are worth annotating. And then by the time I'm done with those books, I want to compile all of those underlined passages and transfer them to a reading journal, because otherwise the underlines are just going to sit in the books for me, and that tends to happen a lot. I don't end up actually transferring them to a spot that's easy to access. And I've seen, now I'm forgetting who I've seen do this, but anyway, having a commonplace book where you can compile those quotes and things that you can access at any time, I think is going to be helpful. And, a nice way to keep those meaningful moments alive. And so, yeah, those are my 3 reading goals in general. I think that I would also like to kind of double down on or rather, I think redouble is the better word for it, my reading of French literature on this channel. It's one of the reasons why I started this channel. I have a master's degree in French and Francophone studies with an emphasis in literature, and so I think that I should put my degree to use and actually bring some of the French literature that I love and that I've studied to my YouTube audience, because again, that's part of the reason why I started this channel in the first place. So I do want to make sure that I'm highlighting more French literature on this channel this year, and that's sort of a channel goal, if you will. And so that will be what I'm largely trying to do here, along with highlighting my other reads that are, other interests and things like that. So that being said, I am going to get into my books that I want to read in January, and honestly probably moving into February, and you will see why, because it's a lot. Before we do that, I have an exciting announcement, and that is that my partner Kyle got a new fancy Nikon camera that he is going to be using for his budding interest in photography, and he is also going to let me use that for filming YouTube videos. So you will notice that the quality of the video has gone up significantly, and he also got me very kindly a microphone for Christmas, so hopefully the sound quality will also be increasing, because it definitely needed it. Filming on my phone was very convenient. It was a great way to get started, and I'm very excited now to have a more advanced setup that I can use to up again the quality and the viewing experience of my videos. And here come the cats. Okay, so let's talk about the books that I want to read in January, and you will see why I increased my page numbers. So back when I started learning French, it was right around the same time that Les Mis with Anne Hathaway and Hugh Jackman came out in theaters, and I realized that I wanted to learn French so that I could read Les Mis in French. The cats are being very frisky. And so that is what I'm going to do in January. I'm going to read Les Mis, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo in French in January. And that, of course, is going to be a fairly large project, because it is not only one book, not only 2 books, but 3. So here we go. This is a total of about 1,500 pages right here. And of course, I got this 3-volume set very kindly from one of my professors and advisors, actually. He was trying to get rid of a bunch of his books in his office, and these just happened to be among those that he was trying to get rid of. So I jumped at the chance for that and got myself Les Mis in French. Each one of these volumes is about 500 pages, including the notes, and so it's gonna help me with my page number goal. I've already started reading this. I've actually started it before. I started reading it a couple years ago when I was in school, and schoolwork just kind of got in the way of my reading. of it because it was going slow and I needed to devote my time to other things. So I set it aside, and now I am going to really devote my attention to getting through this book. So far, I have gotten to page 45 of almost 1,500, so it's going to take me a while. I don't think I'm going to be able to finish it in January, but this is certainly what I want to read in January. So far, I've also very much enjoyed the book. I'm in the very early pages where I'm learning about the priest, Monsieur Bienvenu, who is a very fascinating character, and I'm very intrigued by him and sort of what I suspect is Hugo's attempt to put himself in the narrative. Cats are really playing. Okay, so yeah, that is Les Mis. I will be probably doing a lot of weekly wrap-ups and talking about this as I go along because it's a long book, it warrants a lot of discussion, and since one of my sort of like secondary specializations in my master's degree was the 19th century, I think that it would be useful for me to use that bit of expertise in talking about this. Now, I also wanted to couple that with a nonfiction book, which is the biography of Victor Hugo by Graham Robb. Graham Robb is kind of the main French historian writing in English right now, and he's written quite a few other books, including another one that I have on my shelf, which is an adventure history of France, which sounds cool. And he has another book called Strangers, which is homosexual love in the 19th century, which sounds very up my alley. But yeah, this is also a very hefty book, 500 pages of a biography of Victor Hugo, who was a fascinating individual just in general. He was a poet, a novelist, a statesman, and somebody who is very much like on the far left, somebody who I think still has a lot of relevance today, and one who I'm very curious to learn much more about. And Graham Robb, so far, with this one, I'm on page 25. He's done a really good job of keeping a balanced view of Hugo. I think that Hugo is a person who's very easy to idolize and somebody who's very easy to put on that pedestal and sort of maybe ignore some of his flaws. Graham Robb does a really good job of exploring those things as well. And so I think that this book is going to be a great look into the man that Hugo actually was, instead of the sort of godlike figure that we've made him into. So yeah, very excited to read this alongside Les Mis, which I think we can all agree is probably his masterpiece. I have also had my, interests piqued because there is a read-along going on this year in 2025, which was started by another bibliophile reads, whose video I will link down in the show notes down below. And that is going to be a reading of In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust, à la recherche du temps perdu. And I have never read this, and I would really like to, because this is one of kind of the 20th century masterpieces and one of the big French masterpieces across the many novels that is in this series, or you could consider them volumes of a single novel, however you want to classify it. It's very important as well. Proust also has a pretty big influence on just queer literature in general, and that is something that I'm very much looking to understand more of as I read this. I chose to do the Lydia Davis translation largely out of convenience, because when I went to the bookstore, the copy of the DJ Enright translation, which is kind of like the one that's most scholarly supported right now, That one was frankly trashed, even though it was a brand new copy. Like, the spine looked fine, but then when you pulled it out, the back was just like shredded. And so I just slipped that back into the don't attack me for this, but just slipped it back into the shelf and grabbed the Lydia Davis one. I felt very awkward at the time because I was like, do I tell them? Do I tell the booksellers about this? Will they think that I did it? So I just left it there for somebody else to deal with. Not my proudest moment, but you know what? We're gonna move on from that. So yeah, I did read the first like page of each of them, of this, as well as the DJ Enright revision of the Moncrief translation, and I found that it was comparable, and I think Lydia Davis has maybe modernized or just kind of updated the language a little bit to where it's quite readable, and I think that she's going to do a really good job. You might be asking why I'm deciding to read this in English as opposed to in French, and that is because simply I tried to read this in French once and failed miserably. French being my second language, there's still some difficulty in fully comprehending things that are going on when I'm reading, and Proust ended up just kind of being a little bit too much for me. And what I would like to do, and this is part of the project that I'm going to do, sort of my own side of the project, is read this alongside the French. And so I think, and the reason why I'm going to do that is to read sort of a professional translator's rendition and adaptation of the novel into English so that I can understand what's going on in the book, and then when I go into it and read it in French, then I will already have the understanding of what is going on to where it's easier for me to wade through Proust's heavy sentences and prose. Because Proust is famous for his long sentences, and when you're already not a native speaker of the language, it's very difficult to get through that. This is difficult to get through in English, so trying to do it in a second language, it just was a little bit beyond what I was capable of doing. Will I be able to do it after reading it in English? Probably, and I'm excited to do that. So I'm going to read each volume in English, and then I'm going to sort of read it, either read it fully or skim it along in French as well, so that I can appreciate the original text as well as the English rendition. I do have to say I was resistant to get this one a little bit because it has deckled edges, and I just hate deckled edges. It makes turning pages so difficult. They get shredded and they get dirty, and it's just something, it's a trend, it's a fad that I really wish would go away, and I understand the aesthetic of it, but I just would love publishers and book manufacturers to just stop making this decision, because it's very much not a good one. Alright, last, but certainly not least, is going to be En l'absence des hommes by Philippe Besson, or you could say In the Absence of Men by Philippe Besson, who is the author of Lie With Me. You will notice that the cover is the English cover of Lie With Me, which is a fantastic book. I read that one not too long ago in French and loved it. Philippe Besson is definitely my favorite French author, and his work with characters and his prose, everything he does is just fantastic. And this one is interesting because Marcel Proust is a character in this, and it takes place in 1916, as a soldier in World War I is looking to escape the horrors of the trenches, and I believe that is Vincent. Oh, nope, it's Arthur, who is the young soldier trying to escape the horrors of the trenches. But Vincent meets Arthur, and then Marcel Proust becomes embroiled in this as well, and there's going to be some cute homosexual love interests in here. Proust definitely had a bit of a a queer undertone to a lot of his stuff, and so I am excited to see what Besson has in store for us with this book. And I think that this is going to be a fun one to read alongside Swan's Way. And also this one's quite short. So see, this is one of the books that I would have been very motivated to read if I had had a book total to read by the end of it, as opposed to a page count that I was trying to hit. Because this is 211 pages, and this would have been very easy for me to get into and finish to get my book total up there. And so now this almost feels less appealing because it has fewer pages anyway. I'm not going to go too much into it, but yes, I'm excited to read that along with the other books that I have set up for me. So yes, this is going to be a very French history, French literature rich month, and also year for me, and I'm very excited to bring you along with me. Let me know in the comments section, what are your reading goals for this year? Do you have any concrete goals? Do you have just like some general desires that you're hoping to accomplish or, you know, make good on this year? Or just like, what books are you reading in January? Let me know in the comments section, and I will be very excited to chat with you about them down there. But yeah, until I see you again in another video, I hope you are well, and I hope you have a wonderful start to your 2025, and I guess that just leaves me to say Happy New Year, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.